Hey guys, let's get more news from Miami Heat, but first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Jimmy Butler's all-around play lifts Heat over Pistons. Jimmy Butler posted a game-high 26 points and added 8 assists and 6 rebounds, leading the host Miami Heat to a 118-110 victory over the Detroit Pistons on Tuesday night. Cade Cunningham posted 23 points and 8 assists for the Pistons, who at 9-52 are tied with the Washington Wizards for the worst record in the NBA. Cunningham scored 30 points on the Heat on opening night. Miami also got 18 points and 7 rebounds from Bam Adebayo as the Heat improved to 11-3 in their past 14 games. Terry Rozier added 17 points and 7 assists, and Caleb Martin posted 15 points off the bench despite missing some time due to a sprained right ankle sustained in the second quarter. For the Pistons, Jalen Duren had a double-double with 14 points and a game-high 10 rebounds, and reserve Simone Fontecchio added 22 points, including 5 of 12 shooting on three-pointers. Detroit has dropped 9 of its last 10 games. Miami played without second leading scorer Tyler Herro and key reserve Kevin Love, who both missed the game due to foot injuries. Miami's Josh Richardson is out longer term due to a dislocated shoulder. In addition, Heat forward Nikola Jovic, who argued a foul call, was issued his second technical and thus ejected with 5:43 left in the third period. Those were his first career technical fouls. Miami, despite 5 early lead changes, had a 36-26 advantage after the first quarter. Miami shot 60% overall and 4 for 4 on three-pointers. Detroit made just 43.5%, including 1 of 8 on three-pointers. The Pistons cut their deficit to 61-60 at halftime. Detroit got 11 second-quarter points from Fontecchio and 10 from Duren, who was perfect from the floor, 4 for 4, and the foul line, 2 for 2. Miami got 11 third-quarter points from Adebayo as the Heat stretched their lead to 93-88. The Heat had a 13-0 run in the third, but Detroit still kept it close. In the fourth quarter, Miami closed out the game with a decisive 12-5 run. A bad period for the Miami Heat was enough for trade rumors involving Jimmy Butler to return with force last week. However, Bernie Lee, the player's agent, ruled out any possibility of the star leaving the team at the trade deadline. Jimmy Butler isn't going anywhere. Never. He will win a title for Miami, he said. The Heat, in fact, were fighting with the top 3 in the East until mid-January. But since then, the team has suffered 7 consecutive defeats, causing the team to drop down the table. Yesterday, 31, however, the Florida team beat the Sacramento Kings 115-106, ending the streak. Even so, Miami fell to 7th place in the conference. All of this happened less than a month before the trade deadline, so trade rumors involving Jimmy Butler emerged even stronger. Yesterday, for example, Jumper Brazil reported the analysis by Kendrick Perkins, from ESPN. For the former player, Butler should leave the Heat. Miami has lost 7 games in a row. So I think it's time for the Heat and Jimmy to part ways. So I think the Miami Heat need to do right by Jimmy Butler and send him to a legitimate NBA title contender. Despite the Heat dropping production, there is an explanation. The team recently made a trade for Terry Rozier with the Charlotte Hornets, and there has not yet been time for the player to adapt to the style of play. This is because before the negotiation took place, even without Jimmy Butler and other important athletes were out and, even so, Miami continued to win. Meanwhile, Jimmy Butler doesn't want to trade. Last season's finalist, the winger recently stated that he still wants to lead the Heat to the NBA title. In fact, in July last year, he guaranteed that he would retire for the team. Therefore, everything that happened recently involving the athlete was nothing more than a rumor. Although the Heat are far from the top places, they have 25 wins compared to the Boston Celtics' 37. The fact is that the team has preserved itself during the regular phase for some time. Then, when the playoffs arrive, the team grows in production and becomes a title contender. Last season, for example, it was like that. After meeting the play-in, the Heat won each of their playoff clashes in the East and only stopped against the Denver Nuggets. In other words, for the technical committee and management, there is no urgency for drastic changes. It's just an adaptation period. Tyler Herro headlines Heat injury report versus Pistons. Coming off a loss to the Orlando Magic Sunday, the Detroit Pistons will look to get back on track against the Miami Heat. Looking at the latest injury report, one side is going to be heavily shorthanded in this matchup. As the Heat prepare to take on the Pistons, they'll be without a handful of rotation players. Among the notable names already ruled out is Tyler Herro. The former sixth man of the year is currently dealing with a right foot injury. Aside from Herro, Miami will also be without Kevin Love and veteran guard forward Josh Richardson. The Pistons are going to have their hands full as they attempt to put an end to their current losing streak. Over the past few weeks, the Heat have been one of the hottest teams in basketball. They currently have a 10-3 record across their last 13 games. Tuesday will be just the second of 4 meetings between these two teams. The Pistons and Heat actually opened the season against one another this year. Miami ended up securing a victory, but only by 1 point. Cade Cunningham was the main standout for Detroit in that game, finishing with 30 points and 9 assists. As for the Pistons, they might be down one rotation player as they prepare to take on the red-hot Heat. Quentin Grimes is listed as doubtful due to knee soreness. The young guard has been dealing with knee issues before he got traded to the Pistons. Since arriving in Detroit, Grimes has played in 4 games. In that span, he is averaging 5.3 ppg, 2.0 rpg, and 2.0 apg. Yahoo Sports senior NBA writer Dan Devine is joined by the host of Locked on Heat, Wes Goldberg, to try and figure out if the Heat are better or worse off than when they won the Eastern Conference last season. Yahoo Sports senior NBA writer Dan Devine is joined by the host of Locked on Heat and editor of allyoucanheat.com, Wes Goldberg, to try and figure out if the Heat are better or worse off than when they won the Eastern Conference last season. But first, Wes talks about the pairing of Patrick Beverley and Bobby Portia in Milwaukee being a source of joy for him, as 2 of the NBA's best hyped men teaming up is fun for everyone. Dan talks a bit about Jalen Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder, who does a little bit of everything for them, including leading the team in fourth-quarter scoring, and might not have an actual ceiling on his potential. Then the guys get to the Heat. Wes explains why he thinks the team has gotten better since last year's run through the playoffs, even though they missed out on trading for Damian Lillard this offseason. The guys discuss Duncan Robinson, who went from out of the rotation to fighting for a starting spot by working on his game and rounding out his skill set. However, the more he improves as a dribbler and passer, the more opportunity he potentially takes away from Tyler Herro. Herro's name always comes up in trade talks, both for Lillard and for Kevin Durant, despite him being one of the Heat's big 3. Dan and Wes talk about the good and the bad parts of Herro's game and if his latest injury will once again knock him out of the playoff starting lineup. Dan also complains about Jimmy Butler giving different answers to different reporters about the existence of playoff Jimmy before Wes explains that Jimmy changes his mind a lot and that's okay. Patty Mills intends to sign with Heat. Free agent point guard Patty Mills plans to sign with the Heat, reports Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, Twitter link. It will be a rest-of-season deal, adds Tim Reynolds of the Associated Press, Twitter link. A 15-year NBA veteran, Mills was traded 3 times during the 2023 offseason, from the Nets to the Rockets to the Thunder to the Hawks. Atlanta envisioned him as a player who could provide reliable veteran depth behind Trae Young and DeJounte Murray in the backcourt, but Mills didn't end up playing much for his new club, averaging 2.7 points and 1.1 rebounds in 10.6 minutes per game across 19 appearances. The Hawks opted to waive Mills last Thursday in order to open up a spot on the roster to promote two-way player Trent Forrest. The 35-year-old cleared waivers over the weekend and didn't immediately catch on with a new team, but has reached an agreement a few days later with a veteran Heat club that appears playoff-bound. Although Mills' production has dropped off in the past couple years, his NBA resume includes 95 postseason contests and a championship, in 2014 with San Antonio. He's also not far removed from being a productive regular contributor. He averaged 11.4 ppg with a .4003 pt% across 81 games for the Nets in 2021-22. Mills will join a Heat backcourt that has been impacted by injuries over the course of the season, but features several intriguing options when everyone's healthy, including Tyler Herro, Terry Rozier, Josh Richardson, and DeLon Wright. The move will provide some insurance in the event that Richardson's absence due to a shoulder injury extends into the spring, tweets Ira Winderman of the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. According to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald Twitter link, guard Drew Smith, who is out for the season due to a torn ACL, will be waived to make room on the 15-man roster for Mills. Mills will earn $18,370 per day on his prorated minimum salary deal with the Heat. His exact salary will depend on when he officially signs, but if the deal were to be finalized before the end of the day on Tuesday, he'd make $753,186 and Miami would take on a cap hit of $475,908. And you fan, what do you think of the Patty Mills situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.